Picture this moment. It's the year 2035. You're in a small cafe with an old friend you haven't seen in a decade. The sun hits the table. You've got time in your day and there's no background stress humming in your head about rent, car payments or next month's bills. Your friend leans in and asks the question everyone asks when they finally meet someone who seems genuinely free. How did you do it? You take a breath, smile and say, I held 0.1 Bitcoin. Now flip that scene. The same friend, same cafe, same question, but your answer stinks. I had 0.1 Bitcoin back in 2025, but I sold. I thought I was being smart, locked in a tidy profit, told myself I would buy back lower. I never did, and now I'll probably never get that 0.1 back. That single decision, hold or sell, can be the difference between being rich or staying broke. Not because 0.1 Bitcoin is some magical lottery ticket, but because it represents scarce digital property in a world that's rapidly waking up to what scarcity actually means. Right now, 0.1 BTC feels small. It feels like a fragment, a not quite real amount. And that's the illusion. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly that illusion and show you why 0.1 BTC might be one of the most important financial positions you will ever own. Here is what we will cover in today's video. Why 0.1 BTC seems tiny but isn't. The psychology traps that make people sell too early. The math and history that separate the rich from the regretful. And what I'm personally doing so I don't become another I sold too soon story. Stay with me because once you see the whole picture, you'll understand why 0.1 Bitcoin is not just a decimal, it's a dividing line. Now, a quick disclaimer, this isn't financial advice. I'm sharing what I've researched, history and my personal approach to Bitcoin. Investing is risky and you can lose money, so never invest more on what you can afford to lose. And always do your own research or speak to a professional before making financial decisions. Now let's get started with the video, and the first mistake is psychological. We anchor whole numbers. 1 Bitcoin feels real. Anything less feels incomplete. But Bitcoin is divisible in 100 million Satoshis. That means 0.1 BTC is 10 million units. The scarcity doesn't vanish just because the unit is smaller. Scarcity is encoded in the 21 million cap. Let's set the table with a simple arithmetic. The max supply is 21 million BTC. Chunks of 0.1 BTC possible is 210 million. People on Earth, around 8 billion people. Even if distribution were perfectly equal, which it isn't, fewer than 3% of humans could ever hold 0.1 BTC. And the distribution is not equal. Institutions, ETFs, corporations, high net worth individuals and nation states are acquiring entire pools of coins, not fractions. Coins get locked into cold storage, lost forever on old hard drives, or deliberately removed from exchanges. Every year, liquidity supply tightens. Every year, your odds of acquiring 0.1 BTC shrinks. So yes, 0.1 BTC feels small, but in a world of 8 billion people, it's objectively rare. The market won't always price that rarity gently. Talking about small stakes becoming big stories. If you've been around Bitcoin long enough, you'll know this pattern. In 2010, someone bought 2 pizzas for 10,000 BTC. People laugh at that story, but the lesson isn't don't buy pizza. It's humans consistently underestimate where scarcity meets adoption. In 2013, thousands sold at $1,000, thinking they nailed the top. In 2017, many sold at 20k, convinced they were geniuses. In 2021, others cut positions around 40 to 60k, certain a return to 3k was inevitable. Time passes, The floor steps higher, and yesterday's heroic exit looks like leaving a championship game at halftime. History doesn't repeat perfectly, but it rhymes. Every cycle shifts the Overton window of what expensive means. People who dismiss fractions later discover those fractions could have paid for the car, the degree, the house, or the freedom to choose a different life. The moral is simple. Tiny amounts become huge when a denominator supply is fixed and adoption compounds. 0.1 BTC today is the kind of stake future you'll thank yourself for if you can hold it long enough. Okay, so the psychology traps that make people sell too early, here are a couple of them. If the math is obvious, why do so many blow it up? Because markets are run by math, but lives through emotions. 3 traps wreck most holders. Now, trap number A, loss aversion and volatility intolerance. Bitcoin's path is jagged by design. It reprices against an ever-expensive pull. Trap A, loss aversion and volatility intolerance. Bitcoin's path is jagged by design. It reprices against an ever-expanding pool of buyers and sellers. A 30 to 50% drawdown feels catastrophic unless you understand it's the toll booth on the road to asymmetric upside. People sell to stop the pain, and in doing so lock in a decision the market would have eventually forgiven. Trap B, number 2, the genius of I'll buy back lower. This might be the most seductive thought in finance. Sell high, buy lower, repeat. In reality, the market front runs your plan, rips higher without you, and your brain invents new reasons to wait. Soon, you're watching from the sidelines, while your old position does what you originally hoped it would do. Trap C, social anchors and narrative whiplashes. Bull markets, everyone is prophet. Bear markets, everyone is a comedian. If you outsource conviction to the timeline, and you end up trading your plans for other people's emotions, anchoring on opinions instead of your principles destroys long-term outcomes. Now, here are some bonus traps worth naming. Recency bias, assuming tomorrow looks like today. Mental accounting, treating one stack as casino money. And time inconsistency, future you always seems braver than the present you. The fix isn't becoming a robot, it's to pre-commit to the rules you can live with before the emotions hit. Let's run clean round number scenarios to make this very concrete. BTC at 100k, 0.1 BTC is 10k. BTC at 250k, then 0.1 BTC is 25k. Well, the same goes on. If BTC is 500k, it's 50k. If 1 BTC is 1 million, it means 0.1 is 100,000, and it goes on and it goes on. Does Bitcoin have to reach any of those numbers? No. Could it? In a world of persistent monetary debasement, institutional adoption, and global digital rails, yes, it's within the realm of reasonable scenarios. The upside distribution is fat-tailed because supply is capped and adoption is nowhere near saturated. Now compare that upside to most people's default path. 40 years of wages, taxed each step, savings eroded by inflation, and assets with capped optionality. Even if you never swing for fences, a small asymmetric bet that you actually hold is often the cleanest way to bend your trajectory. Okay, so the supply squeeze, why fractions gets pricier. Price is where demand meets supply. Demand narratives evolve. Technology, distrust in fiat, macro hedging, remittances, savings tech, property rights in hostile regimes. Supply, however, is math. Issuance halves through every 4 years. Lost coins don't come back. Long-term holders remove coins from exchanges. Institutions and ETFs can absorb more than miners can produce. Nation states and corporations can be price insensitive accumulators. Tightening floats mean marginal buyers compete for fewer available coins. That competition shows up as volatility on the way up, then norms after the dust settles. A future where 0.1 BTC is a status symbol isn't far-fetched. It's a logical byproduct of finite supply meeting global demand. Now, on the topic of fiat thinking versus hard asset thinking, here's a mindset shift that helped me stop measuring Bitcoin only in dollars. Dollars are useful day to day, but they're moving target. Inflation is a silent tax. Policy decisions can melt purchasing power faster than your wage can rise. Measuring a scarce asset in an elastic unit can trick you into selling something finite for something infinite. The goal isn't to hate fiat, it's to understand the trade you're making. When you sell 0.1 BTC for cash, you're exiting a fixed supply asset into a variable supply asset because the number on the screen feels big today. 10 years later, you may discover the big number bought much less than you expected, and the BTC you parted with bought much more than you ever imagined. Sell high, buy low is fine within your rules, but sell because the dollar number looks big is heuristic that punishes holders of scarce asset. Conviction is great, but systems are even better. Here are some practical guardrails that have helped me. Rule number 1, keep a core, you don't touch it. Have a base position, maybe that's your 0.1 BTC, that you treat as untouchable. You want to trade around a portion. Do it with a separate, clear labeled slice so you never confuse the mission. Rule 2, decide reasons to sell before you need them. Examples are a life-changing purchase with a clear utility, rebalancing if allocation exceeds your comfort band, a pre-agreed profit-taking ladder at extreme sentiment, specific personal milestones, house deposit, debt payoff. If none of those triggers hit, do nothing. Rule number 3, automate boring bits. If you're still accumulating, dollar cost averaging reduces overthinking. Schedule buys, step away. If you're protecting your stack, automate cold storage habits, backup and security so emotions don't tempt you to just move it for a second. Rule 4, zoom out by default. Keep multi-year charts handy. When you feel that selling everything panic, look at the log chart and remind yourself what a typical drawdown looks like in the context of a multi-cycle trend. Rule number 5, speak in sets. Tens of millions of sets is 0.1 BTC. Sounds materially different from 0.1. Language shapes behavior. Counting sets helps you respect the asset you're holding. Rule number 6, build a real-life cushion. Emergency fund, manageable debt, diversified income streams. Rule number 6, build a real-life cushion. Emergency fund, manageable debt, diversified income streams. These reduce the chance you'll be forced to sell your 0.1 BTC at the worst time. The best way to hold a volatile asset is to remove reasons you need to liquidate it under stress. Now, number 8, let's talk more about the opportunity cost of selling too early. People talk about opportunity cost like it's abstract. It's not. If you sell 0.1 BTC at 25k to fix a short-term itch, you're not just exchanging assets, you're exchanging optional futures. You're saying, I prefer what this 25k buys me today over what 0.1 BTC could buy me in a world where adoption is much broader. Maybe that's the right call for you. Maybe the life upgrade now is worth it. The point is to choose consciously, not impulsively. If you sell for a television, a new car smell, or to chase a different speculative coin, understand the path you've stepped out of. Optionality is the rarest asset. 0.1 BTC is concentrated optionality. Let's talk about stories we tell ourselves and how to rewrite them. Story 1. I'm late. Adoption is still early, relative to global population, institutions and sovereign wealth funds. Being early is less about a date and more about a behavior. If you can hold what you own, you're early enough. Story 2. It's too volatile. Volatility is the freight charge on a scarce emergency asset repricing through waves of adoption. You can lower perceived volatility by sizing prudently, extending your time horizon, and insulating the rest of your life from forced selling. Story 3. I will grab profits now, then I'll get back in the next dip. You might, most don't. If that's your plan, put in writing which level triggers the re-entries are. What if these levels never hit? What's your contingency? Plans beats vibes. Story 4. 0.1 BTC isn't enough to matter. We just did the math. In a world of 8 billion, 0.1 is rarer than your guts tell you. Enough to matter? Absolutely, especially when held across cycles. So what am I personally doing so I can sleep at night? Here's my approach in a plain language, again, sharing not advising. Core stack, non-negotiable. I treat a base position. Think of it as at least 0.1 BTC, as scarce. That's long-term savings technology, not trading inventory. Now, barbell around life goals. I keep a small separate slice for optional profit taking tied to specific life outcomes. For example, a house deposit, family obligations, with rules set before moves happen. Now, 3 is sentiment guardrails. If extreme greed hits, you know the signs, euphoria, everyone's becoming a genius overnight. I consider trimming the trading slice, but never the core slice. Measure in sets. It keeps me focused on accumulating and away from fiat anchored impulses. Security first, cold storage, backups, clear recovery processes, boring but essential. And the last one, cash buffer, so that I'm never forced to liquidate the core into a panic. I'm fully human, I get tempted. The rules are there to protect me from me. Now, the future everyone underestimates. If everyone zooms out beyond price for a second, what is Bitcoin? Depending on who you ask, maybe a savings technology, a digital property, an exit ramp from a politicized money, a neutral settlement layer, a lifeline for people under capital control, a hedge tail event. You don't have to agree with every narrative you see. Most people in more places with more reasons are opting into a fixed supply network. When entire cohorts reprice their understanding of money, the asset that embodied scarcity don't move linearly. They jump, and when they jump, yesterday's fractions becomes tomorrow's fortunes. Will every rosy scenario come true? No, but you don't need a perfection. You need participation, patience, and a plan. You need to be able to be there when the big repricing moments arrive. Okay, so if you do decide to sell, do it on purpose. This isn't a cult. Life is real. Families have opportunities. Sometimes selling is exactly the right move. If you do sell, do it with eyes open. Tie the sale to a specific outcome that improves your life. Use a ladder so you don't try to top tick. Consider selling yield or non-core slices first. Keep the core intact if you can. Write down the reason. Future you will thank yourself for the clarity. Regret doesn't come from selling. It comes from selling from the wrong reasons. The quiet power of patience. We love action, clicks, trades, hot takes. But the older I get in the market, the more I respect stillness. Patience is underrated because it's hard to monetize patience in a world that sells noise. Yet the real wealth from scarce asset usually flows to those who can sit. Sitting isn't doing nothing, it's doing the right things. Securing keys, maintaining discipline, ignoring dopamine spikes, tending to rest of your life so you're not forced seller. and letting the math run. The difference between rich and broke often isn't knowledge. It's behavior. Everyone knows buy low, sell high. Very few can hold high enough for long enough. Bring it back to 0.1 BTC. Let's get back to the topic. Let's land the plane. 0.1 BTC is 10 million sats. In a universe capped at 21 million coins, that is not trivial. It's a slice of a finite digital property at a time where more people, institutions and nations are waking up to its properties. Will the path be bumpy? Absolutely. Will headlines try to shake it out? Without question. Will other assets move faster in a short burst? Often. None of that changes the central logic. Fixed supply, expanding adoption is rising long-term value, with brutal volatility along the way. If you can hold 0.1 BTC through multiple cycles, if you can keep your core stack intact while the world does what it always does, you give yourself a chance to land on the right side of history. So ask yourself the only question that matters. 10 years from now, when you look back in decisions you made in 2025, will you be the person who says, thank God I held, or the person who whispered, I can't believe I sold 0.1? I can't make that choice for you, but I can tell you this. In a world that constantly devalues your time and money, owning a small, scarce, durable slice of a digital property and having the patience to keep it might be the cleanest line between life you want and the life you settle for. Again, this is not financial advice. Investing is risky. You can lose money and never invest more than you can afford to lose. But if you choose to participate, choose with a plan, choose with patience, and choose with the version of you in 2035 in mind. Because 0.1 BTC could be the difference between rich and broke. And your future self is already hoping you make the decision you can live with.